Welcome to Sincerely Me, a podcast about self-discovery and inner work so you can cultivate a deeper relationship to yourself and show up more fully in your work and life. My name is Tallia and I'm honored to be your host. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. It is about time that I'm releasing this episode. This was recorded about 2 months ago on Valentine's Day, I believe, and I am just now getting to release it. That just shows you how many interviews I record at one time. But we're finally here releasing this episode with Kimothy Joy, beautiful woman, artist, author. And if you have not checked her out on Instagram yet, do that ASAP. She has some of the most inspiring, beautiful pieces of art and poetry and all the things. And I cannot wait to share this conversation with you guys. If there were one episode or one topic I would turn people to, it would be this one. It really captures the essence of why I do what I do and touches on some of the biggest themes and topics that I explore in my work day to day as a coach, that we explore day to day in the Inner Work book club and community. So it's no surprise that these topics are becoming more and more relevant and that we're creating the space to talk about these things because they're so integral to our human experience, and I'm just delighted to be sharing this with you guys today. So it did take me quite some time to come up with an episode title because there were so many things we got into, and it really is a conversation about purpose. It's a conversation about making a difference, changing the world, awakening your authentic self, expressing who you are, and finding what makes you come alive. That is all I'll say. And I'm just going to get straight into the conversation for you guys. You'll hear the recording or the interview start kind of mid-convo with a couple reflection and introductory questions that Kimothy and I kind of pull out together. So the interview will start with some of those questions, and then we'll get into more of Kimothy's journey and how she has made a change in her world by being herself, by putting her authentic self out there through her creativity, through her work, and a little bit more about how we both think about purpose and what gets in the way of it, like fear of judgment. So here is to letting go of the ideas we have of who we should be or who we think we are and getting a bit closer to awakening our true and authentic selves. Thank you so much, Kimothy, for this conversation. I am delighted to share it with the world. I'm like taking so many notes right now because there's so many little like hints and clues here and questions that people can start to ask themselves when it comes to finding that thing that makes you come alive. And what I've gathered so far is a couple questions. The first is, what do you feel inspired by? And again, these are just questions to like start to get you to think and maybe bring some new perspectives and like inspirations into your mind. What makes you feel fully expressed? I like that question a lot. What parts of you are asleep? And I think I love this one's such an interesting concept to me because I think in adulthood, the most obvious way to answer this is like that inner child is asleep, that part of me that's playful, that part of me that's light, that part of me that like doesn't care who thinks what about me or places no limits on my creativity. Like those are the parts of us that are so, to me, so obviously asleep.
Yeah.
And we're so conditioned, and we could talk about this in a million different directions too, but it's like we're so conditioned to tie action to outcome. And
Right.
the minute you put that kind of pressure expectation on something like creativity or something like inspiration is the minute you kind of like squash it. It's like you step on
Yeah,
it and it's gone. And so
exactly.
how do you navigate that, knowing that your creative expression is tied to your work?
Yeah.
How have you been able to navigate that in a way that keeps your inspiration and creativity alive?
That's such a good question. And it is like my greatest challenge is like staying in that place. Cause also once you've like, so I've been doing this for like 5 years now and I have a book and I've had wonderful collaborations and projects that have paid well and they're exciting. There's just all these great opportunities. It's brought a lot of abundance into my life. So if you experience a little bit of success from doing that passion, that project, that thing that makes you come alive, then like how do you keep it free and kind of what am I trying to say? Like you don't want it to be tainted by the
Right.
outcome because now it's like the outcomes are working out, everything.
Yeah.
So how do you keep it free and open and spacious and you don't, yeah, squash it out?
Hmm.
I think for me, meditating really helps.
Yeah.
Again, because so the watercolor painting used to be my form of meditation before I believed in meditating or even knew what that was. And now I like can't get enough of meditating. It just is like my reset button or
Hmm.
like working out. But just making sure that I'm really aware of my thoughts and, um, that self talk, what it's sounding like. And I can quickly like just nip it in the bud if it gets negative really quick. I'm getting really good at that. And I believe that it's a skill. It's, a muscle you need to develop. And that's made all the difference
Yeah.
because it's so easy too if you're working on anything that you really believe in and it's creative. It's so easy to go into that dark place of
Yeah.
this completely sucks. Oh my god, there's so many other better artists out there. Or you go into comparison. You're like, this book idea is horrible. Like, whatever it may be. Like, look at what they're doing, and that's just the quickest way to derail yourself
Hmm.
from your truest expression of yourself. And I will say too, I've been reading this book, building off that thread of what inspires you. Other women, I read a ton of books about what other women have done and found useful. There's, do you know who Florence Scovel-Shinn is?
No, I don't.
So she was this artist and metaphysical, like spiritual coach from the 1920s, 1930s. And she put out a couple books, and one is the Your Word is Your Wand is one of them.
Okay.
And then what else? I have like a book that has a couple of her books in one, but I am obsessed with her. She was all about just what are you focusing on? What affirmations are you saying every day? But I mentioned her because she believes that everybody has like a perfect self expression of themselves,
Hmm.
like without your ego, just directly from your soul. And so she believed that it is our job to find that and to share that with the world.
Hmm.
And we each have that gift within us. We have this like pure, perfect expression. So it's our like daily work.
Yeah.
And I love thinking about that because I'm like, if I can strip away the ego and everything else and outside noise, if I can get there, it's just the most magical place to be when you're there
Totally.
and in your flow and doing what you love. And you
Yeah.
just feel confident and on fire and just excited about it.
Yeah.
So I try to get there every day, but it doesn't always work out.
Yeah, like that's a
I'll
lot
have
of
to say.
pressure every day.
I know,
But
I know.
to your point, it's a practice and it's a daily, yeah, it's a daily practice. It's a daily
Exactly.
practice because we don't learn that who we are is enough, right? It's like, well, what are you going to do? What job are you going to get out of college? What are you going to major in? Like, it's
Right.
so focused on what you don't yet know, and that you have to go out into the world and acquire the skills and all the material goods and the degrees and this and that. And to your point, it's like, what if you stripped all of that back? And this is what lights me up in coaching work is like, I don't give a crap what what your degree is in, what you have. I don't care. I want to ask you who you are underneath all of that, and what
Mm-hmm.
that the expression of you is without all of these added layers of whatever, good, bad, we're not judging any of that, but it's just
Mm-hmm.
that's not who you are, and you don't need any of that in order to change the world. And I know that sounds like super grandiose, and I do want to talk about that idea because I think so many of us, when it comes to thinking about our lives and the meaning and the impact of our lives, I hear every single person in some way or another who comes to me for coaching say, I just want to help people, I just want to make an impact, I just I want to change the world. And this idea of changing the world can be it's such a big thing. The world is so big, right? It's like
Mm-hmm.
there are so many ways you can change the world. And I think people can get so paralyzed by the weight of it, by the um, infinite number of choices there are in terms of how to do it. And so I kind of want to break this idea of changing the world down into bite-sized pieces, because I think, again, you are such a beautiful example of, when you are being full of your true expression, when you're like tuning into that part of yourself that makes you feel alive, that makes you feel inspired, that wakes up those parts of you that are asleep. Um, you are changing the world in ways that you might not have otherwise thought of. So I think it's important for us to kind of break down this concept, because we can get very stuck in changing the world being this big, massive, have to create this goal that's going to involve a lot of
Mhm.
money and a lot of things and a lot of time, and
Mhm.
yeah, and I think we can get so lost on our way. So
Yeah.
how have you come to think about changing the world? Like, what does that mean for you?
Yeah, I totally agree with everything you said. I think it's almost like this hyper masculine approach has been kind of pushed on us. Like this is how you do it, change the world, like with the productivity and
Mhm.
goals and everything. And I think taking the exact opposite approach is the way to go, and just kind of relaxing and surrendering to yourself and centering yourself and starting with doing the inner work. That's where you begin. But I just don't think we're taught that. So yeah, you get kind of paralyzed by, oh my gosh, like especially if you're watching the news and tuned into what's going on, and if you are an empath in any way, it can completely overwhelm you. And I've definitely been in that place. Um, but what I found is just by kind of knowing my boundaries and knowing what energizes me, what drains me, what really freaks me out, and creating my day around that
Mhm.
just to conserve myself, like that's how I can show up as my best, like most productive self.
Yeah.
It's not by being out there and being completely plugged in and trying to do it all. I find that when I do less, it's far more successful that way, or that I can make a bigger impact. And like you said, sometimes it's immeasurable and I'm not realizing it, but when you feel full and complete and fulfilled, it's like you impact every conversation you have, every room you enter, all your loved ones around you, the art you're making, the work you're doing at your job, or whatever it may be. It will have an impact. It'll have residual effects on everything and
Mhm.
everyone. And I love it. There's this quote by Rumi. I think I'm trying to remember what it is, and I painted it, which is so funny. It's something about like when I was younger, I wanted to change the world, and now I realize like it begins with changing me, or something like that. I
Yeah.
totally butchered it, but I love that so much because I truly believe that's the way to do it.
Mhm.
And people are influenced, inspired when they see someone coming alive
Yeah.
in whatever way that looks like. You don't have to say it. You just show them by example, by living your life, by being your true self, and people will be affected.
Yeah, there's nothing to prove from that place. You're just showing by how you're being in the world.
Exactly.
Yeah. And
Yes.
not some people listen, because
Hmm.
it's so authentic and it comes from such a pure intention. You're not selling it, you're not pitching it, you're not packaging it. It's just like, no, this it speaks
Right.
it speaks for itself.
And it's liberating. It gives people permission to be their own self. When they see something that isn't contrived and is just like uniquely done by and from an authentic place, I guess it
Yeah.
kind of opens up the doors for them. They're like, oh, well, maybe I can do this thing that I didn't think was worth
Yeah,
doing or pursuing. Oh, maybe that gives me permission. It just kind of awakens something in them as well.
absolutely. And what I hear there too is like, in terms of the inner work and the belief that you really have to start cultivating is that who you are is enough, and
Mhm.
trusting that who you are is enough. And it's way easier said than done, and it
I
requires
know. Yeah.
letting go of so many stories and so many ego based fears and assumptions and um, just ideas of who we are. And I think that's why it's hard, though, is because we come to define ourselves in so many ways by all these external things that take us so far away from who we are. And so it's about
Mhm.
like
I know.
changing completely changing your concept of self. Like, who are you really, truly,
Mhm.
and how how are you going to become more of her?
Exactly. I mean, I it's a daily practice, and even as you're saying that, I'm like, I like literally every project, every conversation. I'm like, are they sure they want to talk to me? Like, why me?
Mhm.
And all this like programming comes up, all this negative self talk, and it's just like minute by minute the challenge. I'm like, no, that's not true. Of course, like, why
Mhm.
not? I am worthy, and I do have a lot to share, and I'm excited. And it's that constant, like, no, that voice, that inner critic that's just sabotaging, you're like, okay, I see you over there, I hear you, but no thank you. I'm going to
Yeah.
choose to think this instead. And then that's how you have to do it minute by minute.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's exactly the practice is like observing and recognizing you don't have to follow that train of thought.
hmm Exactly.
You can
Because
choose
that
different.
doesn't lead to a good place
Yeah.
ever.
Yeah, we have a
Yeah,
lot
you
more.
have a choice.
Totally. Totally, and a lot more control than we might think we do.
Hmm
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, okay, so can we pivot a little bit and talk more about I know I've mentioned this idea of changing the world, but more specifically about social change and social impact, since I know that's such a big part of your mission and your vision and what keeps you going.
hmm so I'll just start back at that story when I started painting again and kind of highlight, the journey or talk a little bit about that and how it led into combining my artwork with social change, this
Perfect.
mission. So after painting on my own, like every day, making that my daily habit for a year or so, then I started sharing online a little bit here and there, and people were getting really excited or they were really inspired by what I was putting out there, and so that kind of just added to the energy of it. But really, around the election in 2016, I think that just really lit a match and lit me on fire. Mostly because I was devastated, and I was just, it wasn't even about the candidates or anything that was happening politically as much as it was about the way women were being spoken about and treated, and what it looks like when a woman runs for president in this country. That was completely devastating to me. So that's when my work really started to shift and focus on women. And I wanted to just tap into all these inspiring, influential, incredible women that have come before us and are, here with us now, that are changing the world, that are not being recognized or not being celebrated. And that is where my focus went. And I started with doing the portraits of women that are in my book. That's what she said. And just doing these collage faces, and writing messages like "the future is female" and things like that. And I
Mhm.
just really wanted to put this message out that women are powerful and capable of anything and everything, and that we're all in this together as well. And I wanted it to be inclusive and diverse, and really wanted to show that in my watercolors. And I started a couple days after the election. I started an online shop because people were like, "Can I get this on a tote bag? Can I get this on a shirt? Like, I need to see this every day. I want to wear
Yeah.
this." So I was like, "Sure." And I was like Googling how to set up an online shop and figure this out.
Mhm.
And that was the impetus for starting that. And I thought, well, if I'm going to make money off this and people are wanting these messages, like, I completely agree. We need to see more of this. Let's get these visuals out there.
Yeah.
I thought, I can give a little percentage to the nonprofits that I really care about or really believe in, or working to do these different, or working on social change in different ways and empowering women and girls and things like that. So that became an avenue of feeling really productive and being able to move the needle.
Yeah. I love that. I This might sound a little funny or extreme, but one of the questions um that also brings up for me in terms of, how people can get closer to the thing that makes them feel alive, and like where do you really want to spend time in a way that's going to feel meaningful to you, is to ask yourself what pisses you off. Like, what is that thing in the world that every time you see it,
hmm
pisses you off so much where you get to the point where you can no longer not do something about it because the injustice or the unfairness, however big or small, on whatever, scale, um,
hmm
what's that thing for you that's just like, how is no one else doing something about this? Like, damn it, I'm just going to figure it out because I see this problem everywhere.
Right, exactly. I know, and it's like I've got a long list of things that piss me off. It's like, what are the top 3, and what can I do every day to just feel like I'm doing something,
Yeah.
and that's why, yeah, I've decided to partner with different organizations each year, and
Mhm.
I'll participate in events and lend my artwork and do a lot of different things like that. But
Yeah.
I think it's my way of feeling like I'm contributing, knowing I'm doing my best, but it's also like kind of relieves me from feeling like I have to be at every march and protest and
Totally.
completely in the news. I
Yeah.
can step back and say, no, like this is how much energy I have. I have this like
Yeah.
these boundaries in place. This is how I need to feel good every day and like sustain myself
Yeah.
and sustain my energy, my momentum, my creativity. But
Yeah.
I can also be productive in these like more structured, consistent ways throughout the
Totally. Like,
year.
here's what feels good to me that's also contributing to something bigger.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's important to note too, because I feel like a lot of people see it being done in one way and that one way doesn't resonate. So they exclude themselves from the experience or the like, whatever you want to call it,
Hmm.
from the movement, maybe even.
Yeah.
But there could be so many other ways, and it's to your point, like tapping into what way is going to make you feel fully expressed. It's going to make you maintain that sense of boundary and keep your energy reserves. It's like what's going to keep you full while also filling the bigger collective cup.
Mhm.
And yeah, and that it just takes time to be with yourself to know what that could look like, and that there are so many different there's so much possibility. There's so
Yeah.
much possibility. I think we limit ourselves by what we see around
Mhm.
us, and that's where the beauty of creativity comes in, right? It's like you get to make
Right.
something out of nothing,
Yes.
and something different, something new, something that comes from within you that's maybe not been seen before, not been done before, but how cool is that
Mhm.
that you get to shape it and design it and create it and make it happen and create something out of nothing.
Yeah, it's amazing. And you're right. It's like I think these big problems that we're facing in the world, they require us to be more creative and bold than ever. And they require people who maybe formerly didn't view themselves as leaders, I never did, to kind of step up and really own their sensitivity or whatever it may be. If
Mhm.
they're an empath, like that can be your superpower too. And, you know, we need to all rise up, I guess, and um, I think we all have the ability to make a difference in a small way. You know, it
Mhm.
doesn't have to look the way that other people are doing it. Everybody has the ability to do something, whether it be
Yeah.
like tutoring a kid or I don't know what it could be. It could look like anything.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to look like the way I'm doing it. But that's the
Yeah.
beautiful part of it.
So I feel like a lot of people get stuck in not just comparison, but in fear of judgment. Like if I
Hmm.
do the thing that's fully me and that's my most true expression, and that's just like, I'm sure for you with the art you put out into the world, like it comes from your heart. It probably feels very vulnerable to share it with hundreds of thousands of people, and with that visibility and exposure comes a greater opportunity for judgment, for criticism, and so where I want to go with this is, what would you say to folks who get stuck in the fear of judgment, who get stuck in that story of like, oh, but if I show up as my full complete self, it's not going to be
Hmm.
liked, it's not going to be um valued, it's not going to be recognized, XYZ, fill in the blank with whatever negative beliefs come in. How have you navigated that for yourself, and what would you say to somebody who's feeling caught in some of those stories?
Yeah, I would say my first thoughts are probably start small. Like, don't make it so big and overwhelm yourself, and
Yeah.
just maybe say like, okay, I'm gonna do this on my own and not tell anyone. Like, that's fine. It's just gonna be my thing that I do by myself, and no one knows I'm watercolor painting. You know, if I'm not gonna make this announcement or put it on Instagram or something like that, like start small and just try to ask yourself, okay, this is like my 1 hour of playtime on Fridays. Like, what
Mhm.
am I gonna do? and just leave it open and spacious in that way. And don't think about, okay, how am I going to be recognized for this? Because again, if you fixate on the outcome, that just stifles the whole thing. So
Totally.
if you can just focus on like little increments, like an hour all to myself, what am I going to do? Like, maybe I'll go like learn something like salsa dancing. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think that kind of just frees you up to be a little more playful.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, like I said, if it's just between you and yourself, and you're just doing that thing, and giving it room to have a life of its own and grow
Yeah.
into something bigger. I think that's a good first step.
Yeah, totally. Not tying any, and I've actually talked about this a lot
Expectations. Hmm.
um on an episode about mindfulness, like doing the thing for the sake of doing the thing, not for the sake of what it's going to lead to, or for the sake of what people are going to think, or for the sake of what it can do for you, or what it can even do for others. But creativity for creativity's sake. Make the piece of art for the sake of making the piece of art. Nothing else. Like,
Absolutely.
don't attach anything else to it, which I know,
Hmm.
to your point, like, can be really hard when it becomes your work. But um I think that's a great place for people to start, is without attachment, without any expectation, just tap into that inner playful, joyful, don't care what anyone thinks, childlike self, and
Hmm.
do the thing, whether it's art or playing an instrument or kicking around a ball or dressing up or, I don't know, teaching your dolls in your closet, like whatever, whatever it is, like coming back to
Yeah,
that and like reawakening, because even if that doesn't end up being the thing that you want to pursue, it's still something that brings some life back into you and brings that feeling of inspiration. And when you can feel inspired, you just open up a whole new um you open yourself up to to just new possibility and different actions and things that get you out of the habitual patterns you might have been living in for however long.
exactly. Yeah, it's like it opens you up to a new realm
Right. You're able
that
to
you didn't even know exists. Yes, yes, so
exactly.
much access. And the beauty of all of that is, so when you're just focusing on doing it just for the sake of doing it, for the fun of it, that's when you make your best work. And that's
Yeah.
when success comes. But you can't focus on that part, or can't be
Mhm.
like wedded to that or have that expectation. But when people are having fun and playing and they feel alive and inspired, then you become like this magnet.
Totally.
Things just start coming to you, and
Yeah.
opportunities
Yeah,
when
and
you're in that
it's
place.
totally, and it's about, I'm gonna see if this makes sense when I think out loud with it, but it's less about, to kind of bring us back full circle, it's not so much about what you're doing, and I'll put it in the context of like music. For me, playing the piano is something I used to do so much, loved it growing up, and I don't do it anymore because I get so in my head about how it sounds or what song should I play, or like, I don't know, so just in my head about it.
Hmm.
And it's less about what it leads me to and more about who I become when I'm playing the piano, um,
Hmm.
and not just what I'm able to access from that place, um, but who who I'm being in that place. And for me, when I play piano, like I'm more able to like relax. I'm a more relaxed person.
Hmm.
Um I'm like in flow. I get so lost in what I'm doing. I'm more connected to my heart. I am playful. I'm more creative, and those are parts of me that, again, like, are generally a little bit sleepy a lot of the time. And so it's less about the piano playing and more about what the piano playing enables in me and what
Hmm.
it brings forth within me, and who it who it enables me to become in the moment of in the moment. Period.
Yeah, exactly. It pulls
Mhm.
you into the present, and
Yeah,
that's where all the power is.
totally, totally.
Yeah.
Okay, I feel like we're on fire here. I'm like, okay, end this, end this, end
I know.
this.
There's so many like themes and things I always want to share that I'm like, I don't know. I need someone to direct me.
I know, I know. Well, I do
Oh, good
have
stuff.
like two kind of closing questions that I ask everyone on the podcast, but I just want to give you another chance if there's anything else that you feel called to share, or a message you want to share, or um, any last ideas you want to bring up, to feel free to do so now.
Yeah, I think in thinking about being versus doing, that seems like a big theme that,
Mhm.
we've been talking about. And also, it's just been really on my mind a lot
Yeah.
lately. Like, who am I being in this moment? Not what am I doing? Like, what's my productivity look like? Um, am I being peaceful? Am I being kind? Am I being loving? It's just so important. And I think, if we carve out these rituals, these daily routines to get quiet and check in with ourselves, whether that be like, meditating, watercolor painting, cooking, like drinking a cup of tea or coffee, like looking out the window. It can be anything. But if you have this like daily routine in place that allows you to
Mhm.
get quiet and check in and connect, then you could ask yourself, what's my intention for the day? Who am I going to be? Who am I being? And
Mhm.
if you could think of a quote or a word or a mantra that helps just anchor you and root you in that throughout the day, that you can revisit and maybe write it out, put it on your mirror, put it anywhere, and just keep thinking about that, even if it's one word, like,
Yeah.
I am peace, I am serenity. I just find that that is such a good place to start
Mhm.
each day, just to keep you settled and balanced and in um, this centered place, I guess. And that's when my best work comes forth.
Yeah.
So I think just finding like a word or a quote or a mantra, I'm literally looking like all over my office. I have them everywhere because they're like my life preservers. Every day I look at
Yeah.
them, or I have them on my phone and my sticky notes. They just do wonders. The words we're looking at, they just help redirect our thoughts,
Mhm.
and they silence all the negativity. So
Yeah.
that's been my biggest thing every day.
Yeah. And if you need a place to start, I know a great Instagram account. A great Instagram
Exactly.
account. Yeah.
And I find my words and I share them. I'm like, hopefully these will help someone out there too who needs to hear this today.
Totally. And yes, words, but also images. I mean, you know this better than
Yeah.
anyone. Like art and
Mhm.
color and beauty, just that, I mean, where else can we find inspiration but in that?
Right.
Yeah. I find it on your page every day. So thank you for putting the work out that you do in the world and for being you and trusting that it's enough and trusting that it does in fact spark the joy and change that you intend for it to.
Thank you so much. This
Yeah.
has been so fun.
I
I'm
know.
honored. Yeah.
Okay, so let's close out with my final questions. So
Yes.
the first is about this idea of significance. That's very much tied to, purpose and meaning and like having impact in the world. But significance was kind of the way I came to think about it, and how we all want to feel significant and do something significant. And that many of us, when we feel insignificant, is when we stop the flow of creativity, is when the inspiration stops. It's when we start to get paralyzed by the questions and the uncertainty and the doubt. And so a big part of my mission and my work and in my coaching is to bring people back to that place of inspiration, of significance. And so the question that I ask all my guests on the podcast is, what does it mean to you to live a life of significance?
I think if you're living this life, you're already significant.
Yes.
I mean, but that's the lie, or that we've been told, is that, we have to do something to be significant.
Ugh,
But really, if we're here on planet Earth and we're being all like, we're here doing it.
yeah,
This is such a challenge, but it's also so fun.
yeah,
And it's, if we could acknowledge that, like, we're showing up every day, we're giving it our best shot, like, that is huge. That's significant.
yes.
And I think being or practicing mindfulness and getting quiet, that's when you start to realize that.
Mhm.
And also just having like a self-love practice as well, which, mindfulness is that. But if you could ask yourself some questions, like, or just doing some self-talk, like, okay, what's one thing I'm proud of myself for today? Like, what did I do really well? Like,
Yeah.
what like makes me feel really proud?
Mhm.
Okay, I was like a really good mom this morning, getting her to, daycare. Like, I did really good. Like, if you can talk to yourself like that,
Mhm.
I think Brene Brown said, talk to yourself like you talk to somebody you love. You can practice that too. That's when you'll realize, oh my gosh, everything I'm doing is significant here.
Yeah.
You could just appreciate yourself. And then you won't have to try so hard to be productive and be out there impressing people and, living by their ideas of success. Then you start just living by your own. And celebrating, where you're at, who you are.
Okay, officially all-time favorite response ever to that question.
Oh,
You're like, what a stupid question. You are significant because you're here.
because you have breath,
Right.
you have life, just like these trees. Like, look outside. We're all significant.
So
We're all
simple,
here
so
doing
simple.
this together.
Yes.
It's so
So
simple. I think we overcomplicate a lot of
yes.
things.
Amen. 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 Oh, goodness. I love that. Okay. And then my last question. The podcast is named Sincerely Me in the spirit of cultivating a relationship to yourself, taking time for yourself, talking to yourself, writing letters to yourself. So if you were to sit down today to write a letter to yourself, what is one thing you would want to say to Kimothy?
I would say you are a brave little human. I love you immensely. I'm so proud of you, and you're just getting started.
Amazing.
Love, sincerely,
Yeah.
me.
So only a handful of people actually like catch on to that at the end. So yeah, both of your responses officially have made you the best Sincerely Me podcast guest in the world. All right, everyone. That was my conversation with Kimothy Joy because I know you're dying to head over to her Instagram right now. It is at kimothy.joy. It's also linked in the show notes for you. Give her some love, send her some sweet, sweet, sweet words of encouragement for all that she does in the world. If you are as nerdy of a nerd as me and nerd out on talking about things like purpose and meaning and authenticity and releasing judgment and embracing who you are and finding practices in your day to day that help you come closer to yourself and find stillness and all the things, I would invite you to join us in the Inner Work Book Club. It is so much more than a book club. It is first and foremost a community, secondly a resource hub, and thirdly a book club. We are going day to day into diving into these topics, asking each other probing questions, challenging each other to think about bravery in a new way, vulnerability in a new way. And our first book club live will actually be at the end of this month, where we'll be hopping on a live call all together and talking, connecting, having meaningful conversations about these things. And I so deeply hope you decide to join us. If you did not listen to last week's episode, I did go ahead and share that for any of you listening, if you rate and review the podcast and DM me a screenshot of your review, I will personally send you a link to join the book club for your first month free. Otherwise, doors are still open to any and all of you to become a founding member, which means membership is still half off. And I'm going to keep talking about this community because I feel so passionately about it and want as many people who feel called to talk about these things to be in this group together. The more of us who can come together to discuss what matters most right now to our humanness, to our human experiences, the more change we can make, not just on an individual level, but on a collective level as well. So all those details are in the show notes. And again, if you DM me a screenshot of your review, I'll get you into the club for your first month free. If you are one of the lovely folks who has already left me a review in the past, that still counts. Just go ahead and send me a screenshot and we will get you in. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for tuning in. I love you. I appreciate you. And we'll catch you on the next episode. Sincerely, me.